There are pictures that send chills down your spine, images that seem completely ordinary at first glance. But once you hear the story behind them, everything changes. Today, we're going through 5 such pictures, each hiding a dark, eerie, or even unexplainable story. Let's dive in together and see just how deep the rabbit hole goes. This is the last picture taken of 13-year-old Abby Williams. She was hiking in Delphi, Indiana, in February 2017 with her friend Libby German, who took the picture. They were both murdered shortly after the photo was taken. They still haven't identified the killer. Delphi, the murders received extensive media coverage, in part due to video and audio recordings released by law enforcement that came from German's smartphone, which recorded an individual believed to be the killer. The case remained unresolved for 6 years until 2022, when Richard M. Allen was arrested and charged with the murders. He was found guilty in 2024 and sentenced to 130 years in prison. This is a photo of the 3 unsung heroes that put their life on the line to prevent Chernobyl from being a worse disaster than it already was. If not for these 3 men in the picture, Alexei Ananenko, second left, and soldiers Valery Bezbalov, center, and Boris Baranov, far right, millions of lives would have been lost during the catastrophe of Chernobyl. 10 days after the meltdown, the plant's water cooling system had failed, and a pool had formed directly under the highly radioactive reactor. Without cooling, the lava-like substance could easily melt through the remaining barriers, dropping the reactor's core into the pool. If this would have happened, it might have set off steam explosions, firing radiation high and wide into the sky, spreading across parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa. In the photograph, engineer Alexei, together with Valerie and Boris, are fitted with protective gear after they volunteered to dive down into the waters and drain the fluid near the reactor during the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in Pripyat, Ukraine in 1986. The mission was successful, and while the damage was still vile, the 3 heroes prevented what could have been a much more devastating event. Surprisingly and luckily enough, all of the 3 men survived. The Jonestown Massacre occurred on November 18, 1978, when more than 900 members of an American cult called the People's Temple died in a mass suicide murder under the direction of their leader Jim Jones, 1931 to 78. It took place at the so-called Jonestown settlement in the South American nation of Guyana. Jones had founded what became the People's Temple in Indiana in the 1950s, then relocated his congregation to California in the 1960s. In the 1970s, following negative media attention, the powerful, controlling preacher moved with some 1,000 of his followers to the Guyanese jungle, where he promised they would establish a utopian community. On November 18, 1978, U.S. Representative Leo Ryan, who had gone to Jonestown to investigate claims of abuse, was murdered along with 4 members of his delegation. That same day, Jones ordered his followers to ingest poison-laced punch, while armed guards stood by. A man took a series of chilling final pictures of his ex-girlfriend as they hiked together in the Alabamian countryside before he pushed her off a cliff. Lauren Bunner shot 18-year-old Jolie Callan twice, once in the back of the head and once between the eyes, and shoved her from the top of a cliff. It had been Bunner's idea to go for the hike, and the night before, Callan messaged a friend joking, "If something happens to me, you'll know who I was with. The pair had been walking the Pinhoti Trail in the US state, with Bunner even posting 4 pictures on Instagram of his former girlfriend hours after he killed her, reports The Sun. The first was of Callan sitting in the car with Bunner's dog, with others of her on the walk. The last pictures of the teen captured her taking a photo and looking out from the cliff top, captioned, "Oh, you know, just enjoying the view," and "Oh, at Jolisa Kitten the photographer." Bunner later called the cops and said, "I want to turn myself in for the murder of my ex-girlfriend that happened just a little while ago on Cheha Mountain." Later that evening, on August 30th, 2015, police found her body, still wearing her backpack. Bunner told police he had shot her in the head as part of a suicide pact before pushing her off the cliff, but he was unable to go through with killing himself. A shotgun was found on him, and a large amount of blood was discovered where Callan was killed, as well as on Bunner's steering wheel. Cops believed he had lured Callan, who still wanted to remain friends with her former boyfriend, there to kill her because she wouldn't take him back. Family members said she was making plans for the future and did not seem depressed. Bunner, now 22, was charged with murder, and after initially pleading not guilty, he admitted the murder in July this year. The court heard he had bragged to cellmates about killing the 18-year-old, saying if he couldn't have her, no one else could. Amityville Horror is one of the most famous haunted house cases in American history. Speculation about the validity of the haunting has led both believers and skeptics to question whether George and Kathy Lutz had fabricated the entire story. Renowned demonologist Lorraine Warren also took part in the investigation and concluded that the haunting was indeed real, claiming that the house was inhabited by malevolent forces and should be avoided. In 1976, a paranormal investigation was conducted inside the house, during which an infrared camera was placed on the second-floor landing. The camera was set on a timer, capturing photographs at regular intervals during the night. In one of the images, something unusual was discovered. Boy is peeking his head out of a room, looking toward the camera. Some speculate that if it is a ghost, it could be the spirit of John Matthew DeFeo, one of the victims of his brother Ronald Jr., who went on a shooting spree in 1972, killing his entire family as they slept. The Lutz family moved in 13 months later. Skeptics believe that the figure in the photograph is actually investigator Paul Bartz, who was present that night. Bartz was wearing a shirt similar to the one seen on the boy in the image. For this theory to be true, Bartz would have had to be kneeling or crouching, as the height of the eerie face compared to the doorway and railing would otherwise make the figure appear nearly 4 feet tall. Additionally, Bartz is not wearing glasses in the comparison photo, and while his shirt has a similar pattern, it does not exactly match the ghost child's clothing. Bartz has never publicly confirmed or denied whether he was the one captured in the photograph. One way or another, this photo is one of the most famous paranormal images in the world. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your support. The next video will be out in a week or two, so stay tuned and make sure you don't miss it. See you soon.